Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, April 8th, 2020 edition, Better Balance, with special guest, Tiffany Sutherland, Career Confidence Coach. Today, you'll learn the keys to work-life balance when working from home. I'm going to admit in full transparency, I'm in desperate need of this information, as probably are most of you. I would imagine it's been really difficult becoming accustomed to being restricted to home. So I need this. My name is Kenneth L. Johnson. I'm president of East Coast Executives, a Harlem, New York-based diversity recruitment firm. I'm also a job readiness facilitator at the Grow with Google Learning Center. I'm a Forbes career coach, and I'm also the diversity recruitment specialist for the New York Urban League. So I'm pretty busy. I do a lot of stuff, so I need some work-life balance. And I also host a Career Seekers show. It's a radio show on 106.5 FM, WPPM in Philly, and we brand it as your only source for career and job search information with a focus on diversity. And for 2+ years, my co-host was today's presenter, and her name is Tiffany Sutherland. Tiff, what's good? It's a Wednesday and we're together again. I love it.
Listen, this is a rarity. I am so happy to be here. I am so grateful for the opportunity to connect with you, Ken, and to connect with you all who are here joining us today. And I'm happy to talk about what is, I think, really important for all of us right now, including myself. So I'm grateful to be here.
You know, I'm excited that you're here as well. I know Theveline, the producer on this, has been working really hard. She tells me we have a great crowd. So thank all of you out there for taking the time to share, I guess, lunch with us. It's about 12 o'clock noon on the East Coast. Also today, after Tiffany's presentation, we will have Piper Anderson of Tyson's Foods coming on. They are our sponsor, and Piper comes on at the end, and she'll share some opportunities at Tyson's Food and also just speak a little bit about work-life balance at Tyson's Food. So Tiff, I told them about myself. I shared information about Piper. I mentioned Thevy. Let's go. Let's talk about Tiffany Sutherland. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So I am, and actually, should I start sharing my screen now, or do we want to, I just want to.
Yeah, I tell you what, let's just go with letting people learn a little bit about you, and then you can kind of run right into sharing your screen from there.
All right, absolutely. So I am I like to tell people I'm a lawyer by training and a change agent at heart. First and foremost, I'm a woman of faith, a daughter, a sister, a friend, an auntie to 2 amazing niece and nephews. And I work as a recruiter by day at a law firm based in Philadelphia. And I also work on diversity and inclusion initiatives and also do career coaching through my company, Four Corners Coaching. As Kenneth mentioned, I am a co-host of a radio show, and I also host a podcast. So I wear a lot of hats like all of us do, which is kind of part of what we're going to talk about today. And I'm just grateful to be here with you all.
Man, you are pretty busy. I'm just thinking about that. You are extremely busy. You do a lot of stuff. Plus, you get up at about 5 a.m. So you get everything into a full day.
I do what I can, man. This situation has shifted my sleep cycle a little bit, which I'm grateful for. But I try.
That's well. Let's talk about better balance, Tiff.
All right. So let me share, and then we are going.
I know that for all our audience out there was a polling question that just hit the screen. Working from home, where are you working presently? So please. Answer the questions, and we'll get back to you and share the results later on in the presentation.
All right. Can I get a confirmation that everyone can see the screen in the way that they need to? And you see the opening screen that says Better Balance on it?
Yes, we do.
All right. We're good to go. So my name is Tiffany Sutherland, and I am going to talk a little bit about work-life integration while working from home. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why integration and not quite balance, because balance implies one over the other. But when we are working literally in the spaces that are our where we sit and eat dinner, or where we used to sit and relax, or if we are in our dining rooms, we are now dealing with a new type of situation. So we're integrating life in a whole different way. So as Ken mentioned, I shared a little bit about myself, and I list these things here. I also forgot to mention that I'm a lover of good food and Haribo gummy bears. Why is this important? Because, and specifically those are delicious. But what is important about this information and thinking about myself and yourself on a variety of levels is about identity and integration, right? We are still and always have been whole people who show up at work. We are whole people who have a variety of needs. We are whole people who have a variety of concerns and thoughts. And so as we think about what we are dealing with right now in this season, we want to work to not squish or box away different parts of who we are, but we want to make room for all of the things that we are experiencing and thinking. So one thing that I want to start with is just recommending that we slow down. Between the news cycles that are recycling some of the same information and our news feeds and our group chats and all these things, it's important to slow down and assess your thoughts and feelings. It can be so easy to run through and rush past what feels very real in a moment, but because we have to get to do this thing, we have to go to do that thing. And you want to assess your thoughts and feelings so you can make space for those things, because if you're not processing them, then sometimes they can show up and negatively impact the way you interact with your colleagues, your family, even yourself. You also want to slow down and assess your resources, your opportunities, and barriers that you are dealing with right now. So this is a somewhat light example, but when I first started, I'm starting my 4th week from working from home. And into my 2nd week, the first week was kind of like all over the place. Into my 2nd week, I realized I didn't have Post-it notes. I love Post-it notes. I didn't have my Post-it note situation set up properly. And I was like, wait, so I need to reconfigure some things. I walked down the street to CVS, got me some fresh Post-it notes, and started to set up my work situation, because I stopped to assess what was missing and what was slowing me down, and recognizing that not being able to pick up a sticky note and stick it somewhere to give myself a reminder was creating a barrier in the way that I was working in the moment. Also assess your resources and your opportunities. Are there things that you can ask for? Are there ways that you can show up differently in your current role? And we'll talk a little bit about that in some slides going forward. In addition to slowing down, you also have to pay attention. Pay attention to how your body feels, pay attention to your energy, and pay attention to your mood. This very chair that I'm sitting in right now is the chair that I have been sitting in to do my work regularly. And this is not the chair I sit in at work. My chair at work has a nice little ergonomic situation happening. I got my arm rests and everything. And I'm recognizing that my body is changing and adjusting. I need to pay attention. Do I need to sit up straighter? Do I need to get up and stretch my legs a little bit more? Is my energy lapsing at certain times of the day? Is my mood shifting because I got an email from a certain person that I work with that I didn't want, right? And so you have to pay attention to these things. Is your mood shifting because of who you are, someone who's in your physical space at the moment? When you pay attention, then you can do something about and make an adjustment to, but because you paid attention, because you've assessed, and because you paid attention.
You know what, Tiff?
Yep.
Yeah, let me jump in. So I was looking at the poll results. So 89% of the audience reports that they are working from home. So you said something pre-presentation that I thought was interesting, and it was that 2 things can be true at once, right?
Oh, yes.
So you're working from home, so you may feel like you have more time, but your family's there. Maybe a significant other, or you have to care for someone else in your family. Like, there are other responsibilities that come with being home. So although you may feel like you have more time, you may actually feel a little busier because you're in that space, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so real, right? It's so real. And you don't have to feel bad about the fact that you feel like you have less time, right? Or that you feel like your time is stretched differently, because it is stretched differently. Time exists differently. We just talked about somebody mentioning that their little girl asked, is today the same day? Like, is it even a new day yet? And adults feel that same way. So children are feeling it. We're feeling it too. So we do have to recognize that, yes, we can be at home and be overworked. We can be at home and be stretched really, really thin because of the additional demands that are on us. and kind of thinking about, how your time might be stretched, one thing that is helpful to do, even though you won't have your ideal day every day, is to visualize what your ideal day could look like in this new season, right? So your routine is not the same, right? One thing I used to do every day when I got to work was go down to the 30th floor to get a cup of coffee. My routine has to look different now. It's helpful, even when you have a lot of demands on your time, to say, what would a perfect day look like in this new situation, in this new season? And from there, visualize what that day looks like, write that down, and then you can make adjustments as it comes up. The day might not look like that. Again, it's ideal, not perfect, and not gonna happen every day, as we know, because life is real, but it's helpful to just visualize that. So as things shift too much, you can work to bring them back to the center of what they look like when things are going well for you.
Gotcha.
The next thing that we want to do when we're thinking about better integration and better balance is prioritize and communicate. So before we were, 89% of us are on here today are saying you're working from home. What matters to you? What mattered to you before we were in the social isolation, physical isolation, in this working from home season? That the priorities may have shifted some, but the things that are important to you are maybe still equally important, or they may have shifted in order. How does your faith play in? How does your family play in? How does your health and wellness, your career goals, your finances, all of these things may take a different order. They may take a different seat, so to speak, at the table, but they still are important. But it's important for you to figure out, okay, right now, how does this look for me, and what needs to be ordered in what way in where we are right now? And then you have to communicate how those priorities match up with what other things might be happening in your situation. So I have someone that I work with who let it be known to me and the team that she can't be on calls after a certain amount of time, because that is the time in the day where she has to make time to transition to be with her family for the rest of the day. And that is important, and she communicated to us. So if there are things that you need from your family to say, hey, between this time and this time, do not come past that door or this line on the floor, right? Do not come in here and ask me for anything. Or if it's tell your friends, okay, I'm going to be unavailable in the group chat from this time to this time, or to tell your colleagues, I have to take a break between this time and this time. It is okay to communicate those needs right now, because I think we are also in a season where people should be at least a little bit more compassionate. People should be a little bit more considerate, and they should be willing to see a little bit more of a shift in how people may have needed. We might need more room in different ways. So make sure you communicate what you need. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I'm looking at your slide here. So I do believe that people probably, in theory, right, should be in a better place, right, coming from a point of compassion. But I think, as you had mentioned, like career, people are getting laid off, finances, people are really concerned about the loss of income. So how do they stay kind of balanced or even integrated, as you would say, in that space?
I think it goes back to being clear about what is stressing you, right? Being clear about where the pressure is coming from and getting it out of your head. One thing that I find to be very helpful, we're in a very digital age where we're just like, sometimes we're either typing stuff up or we're just keeping stuff in our heads. Write stuff down, get thoughts out of your head and onto paper, and figure out, okay, this is the reality that I'm in right now, and I am very stressed. But is there room for me to find opportunity, right? And I'm not talking about just seeing the rainbows and butterflies at the end of the situation, right? I'm not trying to make up good where good might not exist, right? Because there are very real challenges that we're dealing with, but there's also still opportunity. We talk about, there are so many companies that are hiring right now. Does that mean you have to make an adjustment in this season to do a different type of role in order to keep yourself employed and to be able to adjust and focus on the things that are important to you? So there are a lot of different ways that you can do it, but it starts with you being clear about what actually matters. Because if all you're doing is sitting in the fact that you're stressed, or sitting in the fact that there are things that are really rubbing you and challenging you right now, and not coming up with solutions, you're just going to create a self-fulfilling prophecy to stay in that season. So acknowledge it and then work to develop a solution to move through it.
And knowing you personally, I understand that a big piece of your process is to write things down, right? So is that a way of communicating with yourself? Yeah, right, exactly. Is that a way of, I miss you. Is that a way of communicating with yourself? Like, it doesn't always have to be communicating with another person, but sometimes maybe you need to write things down.
Yes, and that's such a great point. It actually leads really well into the next into my next point. When you are writing things down, your thoughts don't stop at what's on the paper. Like, you don't, sometimes they do, right, depending on what it is. But what you've done now is you have activated parts of your brain that are now allowing your subconscious to work on or think about some of the things that you've written down. And sometimes writing, again, is just to dump and to walk away. But other times we are sparking a way for us to say, okay, I put that there. I can come back to it later. I can just give myself space in this page, in this notebook that no one else can see, to be really frustrated or to dream big in a way that might seem really unrealistic to other people, right? It is absolutely a space for you to communicate with yourself and to help put certain things out into the world and get it out of your head so you can try and see some movement on those things. So to Ken's question and his point, one of the things that it feels difficult to do, and it can be difficult to do in this season, especially if your job is not one that allows you to, if you're used to interacting with people and seeing them and them, being able to see the work that you're doing. We're now adjusting to the way that we're interacting and connecting with each other. It is still important to keep your career on track. And even if you've experienced a loss of job or a furlough, there are still things that you can do to stay ready when you're ready to get ready for your next opportunity. So one thing that we can do is to remember and document. We just talked about writing things down, to document your value. What have you done in the past? How do you contribute regularly? How did you just recently contribute to the role that you were in right now? And again, not thinking about this theoretically, not thinking about this and keeping it in your head, but putting it down on paper. And I actually have created a resource that can help you do this. And I think the link is going to be in the chat, but it's an opportunity for you to say, okay, I am capable of doing this thing in this way and adding this value, and not just keeping it all theoretical in your head. The other thing you have to do is articulate your goals. So maybe this is an opportunity. I had a conversation with someone yesterday that this is an opportunity for her to now shift and transition. What are your goals? What do you want to learn? How do you want to grow, even in the time that we are in right now? And another way that you can keep your career on track is to offer new value. Many companies, I mean, I say every company, but a lot of places are in uncharted territory. Is there a way that you can contribute value and add and fulfill a need in a way that nobody else can right now? An example, I have been asked to be part of a team that is running our internal social networking site that is now connecting our employees from across our 14 offices internally through this website. That is a way to add new value in a way that it did not exist before to the place that we are in. So what is something that you're interested in that is a lane for you to open up? Is there something that you want to learn? And there's now a lane for you to open up. You can watch, sign up for training sessions and all these kinds of things. And it's important to also be willing to step in and fill in the gaps, right? Sometimes you might have to do a little something that is a little bit outside of your job description. We all know what that's like before this situation happened. But now in particular, there are new needs that have popped up. How can you serve and how can you help? This is not just to, help your employer. This is to help your own resume. This is to help your own skill set so that you are staying ready when you are ready to get ready for a next opportunity or a next move for growth.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. So Tiff, you're talking about offering new value, right? And opportunities to contribute in a new way. And I would imagine that on some levels that involves enlisting the support and/or just kind of reaching out to your colleagues and seeing maybe where they need someone to step in. How do you feel about that? And how should someone go about kind of bridging that gap while they're working from home?
That's a great point. You can simply send an email or pick up a phone, right? Because our emails probably look a little raggedy right now compared to the way they always look. Right. You could pick up a phone and say, is there something that I can do to help you right now? Sure. And when you make that ask, you are thinking about, you've already anticipated maybe some of the needs that this person might have. So you could operate as though as a blank slate, but you could also say, you know, I know that you're working on X. Is there a way that I can help you do Y, so that you're offering them value and also filling a learning need and a learning desire for yourself, so that you are bridging the gap between two things. Or you can, I think this is also a good time to think about if you're interested in improving your general professional brand. Are you interested in being on a webinar? Are you interested in offering a training? Are you interested in writing an article or posting a video, right? This is an opportunity for you to, and again, you can do this internally for your company, because putting out content is something that's very important to a lot of different organizations. And maybe you don't work in marketing, but you can still add value in creating content for your organization, right? Or even it can be internal facing. It doesn't have to be external facing. So it's, again, thinking about what your learning goals are, but also being able to say, hey, how can I help? What can I do to support you? And then being tactful about your no, in the event that someone comes to you and asks you to do something that you might not be able to add to your plate right now because you're overwhelmed, or because you are, you know, filled to the brim with other things. Be tactful about your no, but also be willing to offer to serve and support.
I think those are all great points. And we just had a question posed to the audience, and it's, do you feel remote work has made your work-life balance easier for you in your professional development? So as they come back and answer that question, I'll get the results back to you. You were speaking about integration before, and now I really get it, because you're integrating. So let's just say you're creating content. So maybe you're interested in creating some marketing content, but maybe you work in HR or something of that nature, but you're leveraging that interest to support that team. So there's an integration, right? An integration of your interest into the greater good of the organization. Absolutely. Is that kind of where you're headed with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's always thinking about, it's like two things, again, kind of the theme we're talking about, two things can be true at the same time. I am going to help you, and I'm also going to try and gain something out of this as well. Now, that does not mean that you slide in people's LinkedIn DMs only with an ask. Right. That, because I've already experienced a lot of that in this season, and I find it very, very interesting. But you offer to build relationship. You offer to connect for connection's sake. And this is, again, that's external networking. Internal networking, people may already have some familiarity with you. You have the same email address as them, so there's already a level of comfort. But how can I serve you while also building up my professional goals? But that goes back to the point of knowing what your goals are, right? And maybe you don't have them spelled out in, you know, goal A and then little a, little b, little c, right? You might not have them in that detail, but just generally, I would like to write more on this topic. I would like to do this. And then you find and look for opportunities to do that. And sometimes it's just a matter of asking, you know, a department head or a team lead, what opportunities exist? And then you can, you know, navigate that way.
Gotcha.
All right. Any, the results for that poll come back yet? I'm interested to hear what that.
Not yet. I'll get it to you as soon as they come in.
All right. So another way to increase and to have better integration and better balance is to create new routines. So there is value in routine. Some people's routines are really, really strict, and there's like no room for error. And that's something that I, especially now, would like to offer some caution about, because it's important for us to be flexible and to be kind to ourselves in this season. So create a new routine, and but before you can do that, it's like, what was my regular routine? And how is this season necessitating that I make an adjustment here? What do I need to do to rebuild and adjust my routine? So one of the things we talked about a little bit is that I used to wake up at a really, really ridiculously early hour of the morning to work out, because that was required if I wanted to get my workout in before my commute had to start, so I could be at my desk at a certain time. Now, I still have to be at my desk at a certain time, but I've cut out an hour of travel time. So now times have shifted. So I don't have to be in that routine. Working out is still really important. So what do you need to adjust and rebuild in this season so that you can still do that thing that's important to you, but you give yourself some flexibility about it now? It doesn't have to look the way that it did, 6 weeks ago. It can look different and still matter to you. And then I think something else that's super important is protecting your time. I found myself starting my workday earlier and starting it later just because I could sit and was sitting at my desk or sitting at my in my workspace in my home. And I recognized that what that was doing was interrupting a time that I thought that was really important to me, which was going out for my walks in the evening. I turned into this at a certain time. I want to be outside and I want to be walking around the neighborhood. And so what I had to do was I had to impose on myself boundaries that say, after this time, unless something really important comes up, I am not going to work past this hour unless I absolutely have to. And what can be helpful to you is set an activity that is to immediately follow that start time, that end time. And so that it's not just saying I'm done and I could just sit here and do nothing. But if I know I'm done to go do X, that can help make that routine stick a little bit better. And then give yourself time for transition between one part of your day to the other, to the extent that you can. This is not meant to be super rigid and super fixed, because again, we have to allow for flexibility, but you also want to make room for the fact that that's important to have boundaries and to have routines in this season.
So Tiff, I want to read these poll results to you because I'm looking at them and I'm a little surprised, honestly. I want to see how you feel, right? Okay. So 52% of the respondents report that they have more work-life balance being remote. 35% report that they have less work-life balance being remote. And 13% basically say it hasn't changed.
Okay.
Are you shocked by that? I thought the number would be higher. I honestly did, of people believing they have more work-life balance being remote. 52%.
I think that actually sounds about right, particularly because, and I have to say this, I am a person who lives at home and I do not have any children, as I live by myself and I don't have any children. And I think people who have spouses, significant others, maybe parents living with them, family members living with them, children, that the world, it makes sense that the worlds are colliding a little bit more. I know some of my friends who are like, I have to have someone take the children to go do something while I get this very fixed work time. So I think there might be a little bit of that, or people are like, the lines are blurring, right? I can sit here and work whenever I want to, and therefore am not imposing the boundaries that say work starts at this time and ends at this time, because it's easier to just let the day kind of float into, and sometimes even the weekends. And I think it's important that we have permission, again, if the business needs for it, if your team requires you to be doing something, I'm not telling you to blow off your deadlines or your supervisor or anything like that. But I think there may be more room to create more of the balance if we assess everything and kind of figure out where we can draw lines and when we can allow for flexibility.
You know, one of the reasons I love this platform so much is because our attendees are so great and they ask great questions and they're always commenting. We had people online like giving Erykah Badu quotes and everything, but nice. We have Nancy who checked in and said she feels like she's busier now. And I get it. I really do.
Yep. And especially because your role may also have increased, right? There's legit, I know a friend of mine was talking about how he had to tell his supervisor that he needed someone to take something off of his plate because the workload had actually increased based on the season that they're in and the role that they play within the company. And so it is really important, and it's okay to say, raise your hand and say, I think I need help. Can someone assist me with take this off my plate? Can someone help me reprioritize? But it is absolutely a real thing that you could be busier now, and to not feel like you feel like you're in the twilight zone or you're alone in that. It's okay that you might actually be busier right now, but try to see if there are ways that you can to get the help that you need so that you're not burning out, because you can burn out even when you're working from home. That's a real thing.
It's interesting, you know, people say, you know, I'm looking at some of the things in the chat and people are saying, look, I feel a little busier now, but I'm happier because I'm getting to spend a little more time with my family. Yes. So like you had mentioned, both things can be true, right? You can feel busier, but still maybe feel a little more fulfilled in another area of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes into one of the last 2 points I want to make is to stay grateful in this season. And that does not mean disregard the real struggles and challenges that are coming with the season, including loss on a variety of levels. But there is real power in your perspective. And you can be sad, and you can recognize that I am grateful. You can be frustrated and recognize that you are grateful. Recognize the power of your perspective right now in this season. And the last thing I want to say is to be kind to yourself. Like we talked about, Ken mentioned multiple times, like two things can be true right now. Be kind to yourself while both of those truths are existing. We are in an unprecedented time. You do not have to feel like you are alone, because you are not. Reach out to people to ask for what you need, ask for the help and support that you need. And remember that you can love the fact that you get to see your kids way more, and you can be annoyed that they put peanut butter and jelly on your important work paper, right? Like that is okay. You can be, like I said, I'm single and I live alone. I can be grateful that I have a job, and I can also be grateful that I have this quiet and be a little bit sad that I don't have anybody to hug, right? Those things can be true at the same time. So it is okay. It is okay. Be kind to yourself, and ask for the support that you need. I'm really grateful for this particular platform. And I'm looking forward to continuing to connect with you all.
So, you know what? I want to get into this a little, Tiff. Mm-hmm. So we have, it looks like Charlene, and she said some supervisors are setting the expectation that staff has more time to do more, which is pressure imposing, right?
Right.
And she wants to speak on how someone can manage that expectation.
I think it is important to demonstrate what you are doing if you are going to say, I do not have as much room as you think I do, right? And that is not meaning that you have to defend or be kind of like, I can't do this because, but what you can say is, this is what is on my plate. And I understand that you are asking me to do these things as well. I'd like your help on prioritizing what is most important for you right now. What are the deliverables? When would you like them by? Because I would really like to help you get all these things done. And here is what I am dealing with. So that you're not blatantly saying no, but you're making it clear and you're demonstrating, this is what's in front of me. How can I now add what you would like me to do onto my plate? And if they see room for it and you have to make an adjustment, sometimes you might have to do that, but you can't. You don't have to prolong that forever, right? Because again, there are some seasons where we're going to be overworked. We're going to have too many things on our plate, but you have to advocate for yourself by going back to kind of what some of the things we talked about, outlining what you are doing, get it out of your head, put it down on paper, take a look at it and say, okay, now where would you like me to go from here?
So there has to be some structure, right?
There has to be some structure. There has to be some structure.
And I really want to encourage people just as a whole. Here's the thing. This is new to everyone, right? So there are going to be some bumps and hiccups on the road, right, to like getting this right. So sometimes there's going to have to be some tough conversations with the people that you report to or the people that report to you about what the expectations are. Like you had mentioned, you have a colleague that basically said, listen, I'm going to be down during this time because I have a family commitment. And sometimes you just have to share that information, and then everybody has to be strategically structured to understand and respect those things. Exactly.
And it starts with you though, right? Because one of the things that I did as a social worker is advocacy, right? But you have to advocate for yourself first before you can expect anyone else to advocate for you. Sure. And in order to do that, you have to have knowledge of the things that you need and the things that you want people to be able to assist you with. So you can't just go. One of the things that I learned when I was a young attorney was you don't just go into the supervisor's office with a problem. You go with acknowledging a problem and a proposed solution at the same time. Gotcha. So in that same way, when you're advocating for yourself, it's not, I'm just overworked. I am overworked, or I have too much on my plate. Here's how I think I would like to be able to make an adjustment. Can you help me do this? Or what do you think about that?
Man, your slides were so informative, and I have so many thoughts and questions just surrounding them. Here's something I'm curious about, right? Do you have basically, say, 3 pillars of of like, is it, I don't know, is there a trilogy of pillars that you think allow people to, if they stay focused in that area, it allows them to better navigate the work-life balance, work-life integration challenges?
3 pillars. That's a good question. I think the first pillar would be self-awareness, right? Knowing, and self-awareness on a few levels, knowing your value, knowing what you have to offer, knowing what buttons push you in one direction or another. And I think the second piece is being able to communicate and articulate, right? So knowing the things, being able to talk about or share with other people. And then I think also being clear about your goals and what you want. And again, and that is not strictly in a work context. If you know you want to get 30 minutes of fresh air, if you know you want to get 30 minutes of time alone with one of your children, if you know you want to have a date night with your spouse, knowing those things then means that you're able to make the adjustments to move around. But if you don't know what you want, if you don't know what you're looking for, then you will take anything. You will be moved in any direction because you are not standing on your own solid ground. Again,
Sure.
I'm not talking about being rigid, being flexible in this as well, but having clarity allows you then to be able to get what you're looking for and navigate around what does not work for you or for what's important to you.
Okay, Tiff, I got one right here. We got a great question here that I can't wait to hear your answer. All right, here we go. How do you put up boundaries? For example, my coworkers who I normally would not talk to on the weekends are now reaching out to me. What do I do?
So a few questions, and this might not be appropriate for a follow-up question, so I'll propose, if you have people reaching out to you who you are not necessarily interested in talking to on the weekends, how are they reaching out to you? Is it by email? Is it by text message? If it's by work email, I'm not reading work email on the weekend unless it's coming from someone who's asking me to do something. If it's by text message, then you could, this might not sound right, but pull the I didn't see the message until, I'm so sorry, how was your weekend? Or hit them with a quick short response and then dip back out, or just not reply, right? Which might not be the kindest thing. That's all depends on your tolerance for communication. But I think it's okay to not feel obligated to be all the way engaged with people all the time when you're trying to step away and walk away from things. So there are some little things you can hit the I'm not responding right away. Okay. And you can delay, or you could politely say, it could get weird if you tell them, I'm not really trying to talk to you on the weekends. That might not be the best team builder. But if you feel that your relationship could warrant that, sometimes some people might be willing to take that kind of a hard line.
So the mode of communication has been text because someone gave out their phone number without permission. So that's what was happening.
So I don't think you have to if someone gave out your phone number without permission, I don't think you necessarily have to respond. And then what you could do is follow up by email on Monday and say, hey, I saw you texted this weekend, wasn't able to get around to it. How are things going? So that way you haven't ignored them completely, but you have now said, okay, I'm acknowledging the fact that you reached out. I'm willing to communicate with you, and I'm shifting the location of said communication.
Gotcha. All right, have another one. And wow, it's interesting. So how do I navigate work-life balance as a parent, newborn and toddler, without being the one who always needs accommodations because of your circumstances?
I think it is important when you need help, you need accommodations. When you need help, you need help. And I think if it's important for you to get the help that you need so your work stays at the high quality that you expect for yourself and that your team expects from you, it's important that you ask for what you need. And sometimes we can impose concerns that other people will look at us a certain way because of the thing that we're asking for, as opposed to them actually placing that expectation on us or them looking at us a certain kind of way. So if you are asking for something that is within what can be offered, or even if you're not sure if it can be offered, I think you do not assume that other people are going to look at you some kind of way because you're making the ask, because sometimes that's just not the case. If you have evidence to show that there may be some hesitation, maybe you find if someone else has asked for that, maybe you find out what the appetite is for a certain type of accommodation before you outright ask for it. So do a little background research, but you have to ask for what you need if your work is, if it's important for you to get your work done and maintain a certain level of quality.
All right, great. Thank you for the answer. People are loving your answers, by the way. So people are excited and you're responding and giving good advice. I want to see what you have to say about this, because I would imagine, based on a lot of the stuff that you do, this probably happens to you quite often. So here's the question, right? It seems that everyone wants to have virtual social engagements like happy hour, lunch, etc. And it is becoming overwhelming because I wouldn't attend most of them in person or as often, right? However, it seems required because we are all home. How do you respectfully decline or set the expectation that you don't want to be on all of these non-work related interactions?
Listen, that is a great, great question. I think it is important, and I think particularly to when you are, and I don't know the diversity makeup of everyone who's on this conversation, but I think it is important to stay visible when we are socially distanced, right? If you are usually interacting with people on the phone, or you're seeing them in person, it's important that you do not just disappear, even if you're an introvert and you are really excited about not being in people's physical space right now anyway. I think it is also okay to choose what you want to go to. It is also okay, in the same way that you couldn't make it to a happy hour after work because you are going to spend time with your children. It's okay to decline the invitation, because just because you're quote unquote at home doesn't mean you don't have nothing to do, right? That's not what that means. So it's okay to pick and choose. I do think it's important to say, I'm not going to go to any of them, but to you decide, and also be strategic. Do you know that this one is put on by a certain department? Do you know that this one is hosted and my supervisor invited me to this one? Do you know that this person is going to be there at this one, or this is the topic of this conversation? So be strategic about, who may be hosting what, which one might offer you some benefit, which one is important for you to be able to demonstrate that you were there, or is it just important to say, for this instance, I'm going to be here because I haven't gone to any of them yet. So sure, there has to be some I think some strategy involved as well, but you don't have to go to any of them, because you don't go to that's not real life anyway.
Right.
That's not real life anyway.
Yeah, I guess, you're going to manage that, or those opportunities, as you would manage them in your everyday life or normal interactions, I would imagine.
I think
that makes sense.
I think so.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, Tiff, we're rolling right along with these questions, right? So Miriam is checking in. What advice can you offer us to balance health and wellness while working at home? I hear people are more stressed working at home and they are snacking a bit more often. We just spoke about this right before we came on. So we do have an answer. I don't know if there is one, right?
I'm about to put myself on blast here, but since we're family, right? We're cool people. We're here. Okay, so listen, I have been juicing, right? I made a beet juice yesterday filled with turmeric and all this good stuff. And I also have a bag of Funyuns within arm's reach, right? So I think, much like what we were talking about, this is about balance, right? And a lot of these themes relate. You do not have to pretend you're going to be like, oh, I'm not going to eat any snack cakes while I'm at home. I'm not going to eat any cookies, or I'm going to work out 2 hours a day. If that wasn't what you were doing before, do not set unrealistic expectations for yourself now, especially in a time of heightened stress and adjustment and all those things. But say, okay, you know what? It's probably good for me to drink more water. It's probably good for me to try and move my body for a couple minutes, and be intentional about, again, identifying what you want to do, and then figuring out, where can I add this into my day? But I could never, Ken knows this, I could never say I'm not eating cookies. I love cookies too much. I'm not going to say I'm never going to eat a chocolate chip. I'm going on this. It's just not going to be a thing. Do I need to eat cookies 5 days a week at 9 o'clock at night? Probably not. Probably not. So it's, again, what do I want? What's my goal? How can I make this a part of my routine? And then being intentional about adding that to the routine. But do not put yourself on some extreme on one way or the other, because then, things could just turn into a mess.
All right. A cookie mess, right?
A cookie crumbs mess, okay?
All right, Tiff, let's get one last question in here. Here we go. If you have one takeaway quote that you want the audience to remember, what would that be?
Whew.
Something that you kind of live by. And here's the thing. I probably wouldn't have thrown this question at you, but I know you're ready-made with quotes and lines and things of that nature. So I'm sure there's something even that you kind of live by that maybe you could share with the audience that makes sense.
So the first thing that came to mind is weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning.
There we go.
And that is a scripture. And this is there's weeping in this season. There is struggle. There are a variety of challenges that are unique to anything that any of us have experienced before. Yet, joy will come in the morning. This season is temporary. This season will pass. And by acknowledging both weeping and joy, it does not mean it's all weeping or it's all joy. Those two things can exist at the same time. So a twofer. Weeping can endure for a night, joy comes in the morning, and two things can be true at the same time.
Joy will indeed come in the morning. Hey, Tiff, listen, here's what I want you to do. I want you to hold tight because I'm going to have you come on after we hear from Tyson's Foods representative Piper Anderson. Piper's going to come on and speak about some job opportunities. Hey, Piper, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm excited to hear about what's going on. You know, you had me Googling things in Northwest Arkansas after the last DCSS. I was so excited. People were like reaching out to me like, hey, she got me looking into this. So
hey, it's a great place. Hey, we're keeping coronavirus at bay over here in Arkansas.
I'm sold. So. That alone has me sold. I can still kind of go outside over there, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, Tiffany, thank you so much for that information. It was great. I think right now it's such a critical time about balance, and our Town and Culture team, actually right now we have a platform that we went live last week called Working Wellness, and it's all about, I mean, they're providing, it's really interesting, they're providing like activities for children to do, like our Town and Culture team here at Tyson Foods, they're providing activities for children, they're providing all sorts of things around balance, health balance, mental health, all of that, a lot of resources around that, and then just some connectivity points across the organization, which is really important because we're just not as interactive as we once were. So really appreciate that information. I think it's just so critical right now. It's critical day in and day out, but especially in the times that in the environment we're in right now. You know, Tyson is a really great organization. We, you know, especially right now, we are working to feed America, and we've kind of, it's amazing kind of what our purpose has kind of shifted to. Obviously, our purpose is to make great food and to feed America, but in times of crisis, it's even more critical. And so, you know, Tyson right now, we are hiring a ridiculous amount of people right now at our plant locations. Our plants are fully up and running, and we have an obligation to feed the world. We are the largest food provider in the world, and so, you know, that's what we're dedicated to right now. And so it's exciting times, and you just have a new purpose for the organization, especially in times like this. So anyway, you know, our field locations are kind of where we're hiring fervorously right now. You know, our corporate locations, we're hiring, you know, critical roles that are helping us make moves. You know, think about our food service business. So Tyson's really broken down into retail, food service. Food service right now is kind of on a halt, right? Restaurants aren't open, or they're getting a lot less traffic. You know, stadiums aren't open where you can get a good ballpark hot dog. Our, you know, hotels aren't running. A lot of cafeterias, those kinds of things. You know, schools are shut down, so we're not providing, you know, a good chicken sandwich to a school right now. And so we've really had to shift our food service business to help stock the shelves of retail, because we all know the retail shelves are very light right now. And so we're doing great things right now. And so we're really trying to look for innovative people that want to work with a purpose of feeding America and feeding the world. So usually I have a couple of hot jobs to talk through, but I think I really wanted to focus on our operations, because they're at the front line of everything right now. And they are the ones that deserve all the credit to what we're able to provide America from a food perspective. We're also doing a lot of, we're providing food for food banks. I think we're at $13 million worth of food donation right now. And it's increasing. That's just what we're doing from a corporate perspective. The local plants in their communities, they're doing their own thing as well. So I'm sure it's well more than $13 million, but that's what our leadership has determined right now, and how we're providing for food banks. Our K-12 team, who they sell product to schools while they're out providing for students and children who may not know where their next meal is coming from, and they lean on schools to food. So they're getting real creative, and that's what their main focus is right now. So really, really proud of what Tyson is doing. I think, I think we have a strong, from a balance perspective, I think right now all of our corporate offices are working remote, and our CEO has said, I've seen more productivity with people working remote. It's amazing. And so just a really great environment, and then there's, we have to always consider, the majority of our team members are, in a plant facility. They don't have the flexibility, right, to work from home. And right. So we always keep that on the forefront in all the decisions that we make from a flexibility standpoint. But, I think the best advice anyone's ever given me is, I have a team of 10 people that I manage. And I think the best advice I've ever gotten as a leader is, meet people where they are. Yeah. If they have a situation, I have a team member on my team right now. She's a colonel in the Army Reserves. And so I've pulled a lot of her work back and allocated it elsewhere, because she is serving our country right now. She's trying to balance all. She has two, kids in school. She's trying to balance that. And, I had to meet her where she is. It may not be ideal. I know when I had the person who asked about being a mom, I have a 1.5-year-old. When I went through his birth and, coming back to work, there's a lot of complications, and, my boss met me where I was, and provided the support. And I think that's the type of culture, and I think the world that we live in now. So.
You had mentioned that you have a team of 10, and just from this experience here on the DCSS, I've really admired your communication skills and the way you share information. And I think that's really key at this point in time, right? The person that's in the armed services that reached out, that's a member of your team, like it's about communicating, hey, listen, I need kind of some time to do some other things here. Yeah. No disrespect to my duties and responsibilities here at Tyson, but is there a way to balance that? And that's kind of what Tiffany was speaking about, kind of communicating to strategically balance the things that you have to do.
Exactly. No, it's critical. And, she's trying to serve our country, and she has for almost 30 years. And, I admire her for that. I know nothing about that world, right? I don't come from a family that, served tremendously, and, I don't understand it, but I try to empathize and put myself in her shoes, and, how can I support her? Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's more critical right now. I mean, at the end of the day, that is more critical. Just like if you're having a child, that is more critical right now. Sure. And I think as people grow into leaders, and that's some of the best advice I give to people that are trying to grow into people managers and things like that. It's just really important to meet people where they are. And, one day they may pick up for somebody else going through something. And so, that's the type of culture that we try to empower our team members with. I think it's the right thing to do. So.
No, but speaking of the right thing to do, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your time, just to kind of speak about the Tysonet culture in a very empathetic voice, right? I really felt that from you and the people at Tyson through this, because I think that's kind of what people need. Yeah, people are interested in the job opportunities at Tyson, and I'm sure the team at the National Urban League, they're sharing that information out on their feeds. And I know everyone that sits on this actual webinar will get information about opportunities, Tyson, but you actually took the opportunity to come on and speak about the culture. So we really appreciate that.
Of course. No, I really appreciate it. And Tiffany, great presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Piper.
Thanks.
So Tiff, listen, we did it again.
Listen, this was great. This was great. These are some great questions.
Yes, great questions. You know, I'm sure people have more questions. If you don't mind, please share with the audience how they can stay connected to Career Confidence Coach Tiffany Sutherland.
Absolutely. So you can find me. I'm on Instagram at Tiff South, Tiff with 2 F's. I put it up in the little, the name under my image here. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Tiffany F. Sutherland. And you can also visit me at fourcornerscoach.com, where I work with professionals about improving their career. And one of the resources that we mentioned, talking about how to communicate, you know, what your goals are, how to be clear about that, and how to find the next opportunity for you. So Instagram, LinkedIn, and you can visit fourcornerscoach.com, FOUR. You
know what? Thank you so very much. Please stay connected to the Urban League Jobs Network. We'll continue to produce great information. April 22nd, we are going to have our next webinar. It is Getting to Green. Attendees will explore career opportunities for people of color in the growing environmental and sustainability sector. We're very, very modular and flexible here at the Urban Leagues Job Network. We understand what's going on right now. And if we're forced to change the actual topic, we're prepared to do that. I know I've spoken with Theveline Felix, the producer of this segment, and she spoke about us possibly changing to focus in on how we can better add value in this time of need. So we may do something like laid off and looking or something of that nature, but we're just here to provide information to you guys. Speaking of Theveline, I want to thank her. I want to thank Wanda Jackson and the rest of the NUL team, Michaela, for pushing the questions to us. Thank you so very much. It's been great. If you want to connect with me, Kenneth L. Johnson, East Coast Executives, you can visit eastcoastexecutives.com, and it'll lock you into all our social media feeds. I'm heavy on LinkedIn, so please reach out to me here. Bottom line is we're here to help you, and that's what the purpose of this was today, just trying to give people an opportunity to get through this trying time. Tiff, I want to thank you for all that you do and for coming and just kind of dedicating your time today and sharing what is so special about you. I really, really appreciate you, sis.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be a resource, and please look forward to connecting with you outside of this experience.
Thanks a lot. Thank you all the attendees. Great questions today. We'll be back April 22nd, so look for us. You'll be receiving stuff in your inbox. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.